I am a dirty, dirty whore who does not know how to use OBS or make any video that isn't just me talking into a microphone. This is the reason for what you are about to see on my end for this Worst of Doctor Who installment. It was my first time really ever full force going into trying to do a whole video with OBS, whether it be a mistake on my end with setting it up or some sort of corruption in the finished file. We lost all the audio on my file, and for some reason the video came out looking like a telesnap reconstruction. Not that what you're seeing now is much better, but it's something. It's better. Let's be real. That is just a brief explanation of what you're about to see. Apologies in advance, and especially apologies to Connor. We actually had a really fun time recording the initial video, and really, this is all my fault. But I guess I'll let Connor take it away now.
Basically, because of this technical error, what we're going to have to do is the reaction. For some of it, you're only going to be able to see his visual reaction to what I say or what the episode's doing. In other cases, I will have to cut things out that he has said, which is really unfortunate, but it'll just improve the pacing and also watchability of the video. And then there are some cases where I have gotten him to re-record lines that he said in the video that are important. I didn't get him to do a heck a lot of amount. It would be very, very difficult to get everything covered, just to give it something. But hopefully the end product will be enough to suffice. So enjoy the video. Alright, so Joey, I have 3 very important questions for you. Yes, you're a special guest. We got 3 questions this time rather than 1. So I will just give a preface to people watching that this is edgelord territory, so you might want to skip forward a few minutes if you're not into that. But I wrote it down last night, and I'm like, yep, I'm going to keep this. So the first question is, what do you call an Irishman with no legs? Neil. And then the second question is, what do you call an Irishman with no hair? Sean. And then the third question is, and this is the best one, what do you call an Irishman with no legs and no hair? An ugly Catholic. Anyway, hello there, and and welcome to the worst Classic Who series. We're going to be doing Death to the Daleks. I couldn't think of a joke that was applicable to that title, so I just came up with another one myself. That was a joke that my dad told me when I was a child, and it was fucking hilarious. The things that homebrew do to you. Anyway, so I have Joey on here, who has been on the channel before, but hasn't been on one of these videos. You're a long-standing guest ever since the days of the first lemon squeeze. Yeah, I was there. I saw the war. But yes, Joey is here for a story that I'm pretty damn sure he loves, based on things I've heard. To the audience, spoilers if you haven't seen all of New Who and all of Classic Who, because sometimes in these videos we talk about that sort of thing. I try and make sure that my guest doesn't talk about what I haven't seen, because then it's spoilers, and bloody Will Maddox is really bad at this. He was just like, oh, this is the scene where the big cock thing comes out the wall. I'm like, thanks for telling me before it happens. And I'm like, I want to see it for myself. I don't want you to tell me it's going to happen, man. I'm like, you're so much more like Riversong than you think. You're horny and you like spoilers. Anyway, but yeah, so sometimes we do talk about other shit like that, so just bear that in mind. Remember to leave a comment about a New Who story you want us to defend against Hellbent. We do that at the end of each of these videos. We also have a locked list of Classic Who stories to get through at the moment. When Death Daleks, you can see I'm going through them chronological at the moment, because obviously we don't have the shuffle anymore due to Adam not being on here anymore, and because I'm doing my marathon on Twitter, I'm doing them in order like that. And obviously, once all of the TV stories have been gone through, it'll unlock the grand finale, which is Dimensions in Time, which I'm very much looking forward to. But yeah, That's the list of stories we got. I have my DVD for Death of the Daleks. All I know about the story going in is it's very divisive. It's got a hilarious cliffhanger at the end of part 3, I believe. And the music is by Carrie Blyton, which is worrying. Really looking forward to this story. In my marathon, I'm still yet to hit a story that I actually dislike, and I don't think this is going to be the first one, if I'm going to make a prediction, honestly. I don't think this will be the first one, because this is not a story that was originally on my list, because it doesn't actually rank low enough to be on it, but it was requested by one of the subscribers to be on the list, so I put it on there. Also, for people who aren't on Twitter, I'm a tea drinker now. I love it when they have a bad landing. Like in the Romans. And then they just end up in Rome and he doesn't explain what happened. I think the only faulty landing I can think of in New Who is probably the Rebel Flesh, because it goes into the moss.
Well, don't worry, I've got an oil lamp in here.
I'm gonna guess this won't work either. Or maybe it will. I don't know. I know that his emergency oxygen in Planet of the Daleks didn't work. Hang on, is this the same fucking scene, just lighting, not oxygen? Oh, he's got a bong. He's actually got a bong. Yeah, I can imagine Jodie and Yaz getting blazed in the TARDIS. Oh, Yaz, I'm feeling a bit tipsy. You know, I actually invented marijuana. I went to Jamaica for a holiday. I put some Venusian spices in the plants. I think Elizabeth Sladen looks like she's cold.
Not really dressed for this climate, am I?
No, you're not. I thought so. Oh, that bong is that bong is filling up. How you meant to Aikido a rag? It's not possible. You'd just be playing with curtains. Doctor, why have you deserted me on this planet? Science. Science, Sarah, science. I love how melodramatic this music is. It sounds like the school choir. Oh! Are we watching Psycho? The direction's really good though. The whole planet's a big fucking bong. Where are my Rastafari villains? Elizabeth Sladen is like the funniest noises. This is trying to like get away from all the drug dealers. Clara, do you ever have that dream where someone grabs you from under your bed? Well, as we know, Clara was in every story. Yeah, she's under one of these rags and she just got belted by Crank. God. I can visualize the rubbing over the whatever they're doing. What is that instrument called? It looks a bit like a honeycomb, but it's like got horizontal lines on it. Oh, hello there. Oh, very romantic.
The Excelons took us by surprise, right after.
Oh, Excelons, I've heard of these. That guy looks a bit like Robert Holmes.
They treat it as a sort of shrine.
Oh, I love this transition.
Near it.
She's a fresh chicken in this one. I was trying to think of something to say. I couldn't figure out what word it was, and I went with that one. Ooh. Let's see these hieroglyphs, eh? This looks like a very sophisticated alien pyramid. Oh, yes, the way that these rags guys attack Sarah Jane, it's a bit like when you're a kid and someone throws a blanket on you. This guy looks like fucking... What's the guy who plays Magneto in the prequel films? Yeah, that's one. He looks like Michael Fassbender. These look like Kevin Stoney's character from Revenge of the Cybermen. I do love how Kevin Stoney only appears when it's an iconic villain. That framing is very satisfying. Daleks! What the fuck is this music? Uh, I mean, I enjoyed that. Yeah, so like, you know, it was fun, but so I was just trying to think what we learned. So they're on this planet where there's something that was causing a paralysis in the TARDIS. There's these people that wear rags on their heads, and they have those faces, and I don't know what they're called yet, but they have those weird eyes. Sarah Jane's with them, and then you got a doctor who's found this like group of, I would imagine, humans from some future planet, talking about like colonies and whatnot. They're part of an organization called, is it Marine something? Yeah, and they were explaining that there are humans from colonies dying from a disease and it needs to be cured, and they're stuck on this planet. Though Sarah Jane is, there's this like a pyramid that's like really futuristic and like sophisticated, and it has like, these cool hieroglyphics on it. And then there's also a flying saucer, and the Daleks come out of it. I wouldn't say I'm like over the moon yet, but I'm enjoying it. You know, there's some interesting things going on. It's quite minimalist so far, I think. I kind of want something to happen now, so I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I just like how the Daleks they weren't even there. They just randomly turn up and they're like, "Hello, exterminate." And Kerry Blyton's music is like dit, dit, dit. So let's find out if they all die. The doctor could literally have fucking died there and then. You can just tell he fucking hates these tin boxes. Oh, I love religious horror. Oh god, that's right in the middle of the spine. Is it? Is it just trying to... Is it engaging in melee combat? Oh! Wow. Oh, now they've got a shrine. They're gonna turn this Dalek into a bong. What? What? Ooh. Ooh. Two birds with one stone. 360 no scope.
Next time you get an idea, keep it to yourself, will you?
Oh, you fucking asked him, you horrible woman. You asked him and he told you. Whoa. What the hell? Okay, so we're already halfway through the story. I mean, it's kind of fun, but it's like, I'm not really learning I'm not really learning that much. I'm learning a little bit, but not a lot. But we learnt about how the Robert Holmes looking guy is a bit ruthless, a bit sociopathic. So there's that, and then there's the sacrifice, and then it turns out that they were gonna feed them to this thing. I'm sort of waiting for it to get wild. Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike the story so far, but it's not really what I thought it would be. I suppose I could say it's a bit different. It's a bit different to what I thought it would be. Like it's I don't know. It's a little bit more like unironic than I thought. But it's not bad. It's fine. You can't even see the logo properly. It's Terry Nation trying to be like, hey, I'm gonna have a spin-off some point. Don't think about Doctor Who. I think it's kind of crazy how right after this he did Genesis of the Daleks, which is like really, really good. I swear this exact same music was used in Phantom Menace when they walk onto Tatooine.
Yes, palpable hit.
Where's the Doctor doing running commentary? He just gives up.
You will obey.
I like how speedy they are. That is quite big. Oh my god. Holy shit. It's like a snake dragon. This feels like a medieval fantasy game with Daleks in it. Oh! Even like the dialogue is the kind of stuff you get in like a medieval board game where you read out cards.
Another of our Dalek friends has had root trouble.
You will obey.
It looks like a Dalek contact lens or something. I mean, Daleks are just ergonomically terrible in general. Like, the design does not work in terms of like what you would actually want. It's just iconic. Apparently he's quite a patriarchal figure, isn't he? In some ways. Maybe not quite as much as Hartnell with Susan, but similar extent. Looks like intergalactic dominoes. I want to see the dictionary for this. Bah, bah, bah. Bah, bah. Eh? I love it when they look at each other. Oh. Holy fuck. Wonder what that thing smells like.
He didn't get out again, did he?
What? Jesus Christ. Oh, I think I know where this is going. I know about this cliffhanger. Are they trying to suggest that those people didn't know how to figure out that maze? They, like, were in there for so long and they never figured out that fucking maze. It's not that hard. It's not a hard maze. It's really not that hard. Those people must be, like, terribly stupid. To not figure out that maze to the point where they decay and die in there. Maybe they were, like really old, like they were had like a year left on their life or something. I don't know. Even then, like a whole year to do that maze, and he does it in like 2 minutes. They must have been hallucinated, and they just that's really funny. Oh, here we go. I recognize this bit of flaw.
Stop, don't move.
It was so sudden. It's weird because I knew it was about to happen, and yet it still surprised me. Okay, so now we've got Doctor Who in the puzzle game. Okay, this is starting to get fun, I suppose. So we have the snake dragon thing that burnt the Dalek. That was fun. The Daleks are very fast. Like they're gliding as if they're like ice skating. It's really cool. So we learned a bit about Exelon in this. That was really good, about the two different tribes and their backstory. There's a lot of factions going on here because you've got the two different races of Exelons. One are above the surface and one's subterranean. And then you've got the colonists that are here, and then you got the Daleks, and then you've also got the Doctor and Sarah as well. It's weird because there's a lot going on, but there's also not a lot going on as well. Yeah, I suppose they got like half of that sorted by having the the surface Exelons enslaved by the humans, enslaved by the Daleks. This is a fun story, but it's also like there's something about this story that's just awkward. I don't know. It's almost like it's reluctant to be a Dalek story, which makes sense because I get the feeling that it kind of is production wise. Because I know that John Pertwee hates the Daleks, and I know that Robert Holmes hates the Daleks, and this is when he starts to like. Apparently, this is the point where Robert Holmes is like shadowing Terrence Dicks as script editor. And I know the reason why this story is called Death to the Daleks is because Robert Holmes hates the Daleks. It's a good story, like it's got good parts and it's fun, but I'm scratching my head a bit. I have to say, I'm trying to like kind of piece together what this story actually is. There's quite a lot to wrap up in part 4, so I'm interested to see where it goes because there's a lot going on here. There's a lot. I want to see how he scrambles to the finish line. Yeah, it's weird because there's a lot of moving parts, but it doesn't have enough substance to be a six-parter. Very strange. But you know what? I'm not disliking it. I'm just a bit like it's weird because like it's an odd feeling because I feel confused despite the fact that I know what's happening. I mean, if there's one thing that I will say, it is flying by. Oh, is this a bit like the Five Doctors? He's very close to the red. Very close to the red.
Oh, was that really necessary, Doctor?
See, I thought it was going to be like you fall into a pit. Please, 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 please go on that. Oh, he just shoots it. Oh, and it just goes on it anyway. Oh, that works. Oh, he's disarmed it by shooting it.
Nothing.
You can't figure out my puzzle, boy. This is really just Escape Room, isn't it? Oh, sing-song Dalek theme. Yeah, they should have played this theme at the end of Bad Wolf. What are you, coward or killer? Da-da, da-da, da-da. Coward. Any day. I will not die. Da-da, da-da. Find him, Packer! Find him! Da-da, da-da, da-da. Oh. Boy. Oh, my eyes. What? What? Is he a Jedi?
Mason disappearing from Doctor Who YouTube.
This sounds like the Ewok theme. Da, 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 da. What? Yeah. I think I have seen that before. What the fuck happened to it? Okay. Okay. Kick that chair over. With the fucking ashes on it.
Why? It's the scorched planet policy.
Scorched planet policy. Bags of sand. Oh, I see what's gonna happen.
Look at the city.
Oh. How sad. That was actually quite satisfying to look at, though. It's like melting pavlova.
It's rather a pity in a way. Now the universe is down to 699 wonders.
I mean... that was like... that would have been like a comedy line in the Tom Baker era. It reminds me of that bit in Creature from the Pit where Romana says this ridiculously long number and he's just like, whoa, but that's my lucky number. Indeed, that was Death to the Daleks. That was interesting. I don't know how to feel about that. I almost feel like I don't really know that much more than what I did before I watched it. So, like, you know, it was a story and it had fun parts for sure, but I learnt about it. I learnt about the Exelons, and there was a funny puzzle room where a man turned to ash for no reason, and there were people that couldn't figure out how to do a very pretty novice level maze, and died. This felt like I was just talking about it before when we were sort of like near the middle of the story, but this felt like it was written like an interactive game. That's what it came across to me. Well, because even some of the dialogue was borderline like second person. Yeah, but it's and it's fun, but I don't think it's it wasn't a classic. I'll say that much. I do think it's plainly obvious that John Pertwee fucking hates this story. I could definitely sense an air of reluctance to this. It looked like parts of it looked like the people working on it were like they were put in labor, if that makes sense. It felt labored to them, as opposed to it didn't. as natural. I feel like with something like Planet of the Daleks, a lot of it felt very natural. It felt like it flowed together really well. This one was fun, but it definitely felt like they were just trying to get the job done. Though I will say, I think the one performance that were very much enjoying themselves were the Exelons themselves. I think they were definitely having fun. Yeah. I mean, it's got some interesting parts in it. But I think maybe it wasn't fully utilized. I think you could have had a bit more meat, a bit more development. By no means a bad story. I think there's definitely the parts that are meant to be funny aren't as funny as the parts that aren't meant to be funny. I think I like the setting. Definitely the setting. I really like the setting. Oh yeah, part 1 was fucking excellent. And then the rest, some of the rest of it was also excellent, but for different reasons. But like, I do think that is it me, or did like the Doctor and Sarah not have that much to do, or like that much character in it? Like they were very they felt a little bit, apart from part 1, they felt a little bit stock to me. It was almost just like we were watching them do things rather than learning about them. The thing with the Daleks is they almost just join in the story like uninvited. It's definitely the thing of like they set up like this whole world and these people and their their backstory and all that, and then the Daleks are just suddenly like, "Hello there, we're also going to be part of this." I can see why the expanded universe has delved more into this, because there's a lot of material here to work with, especially with Exelon. Yeah, we get a window into it, but we don't really get the full thing. I think the human colony side of it was very underdeveloped. Like, we only really got a lot of it with them in part 1 and then part 4. I didn't learn enough about them because the ending, obviously, the guy goes on the ship and sacrifices himself. It had a very similar ending to Colony in Space, because remember in Colony in Space, I can't remember his name now, but he goes on the ship by himself to protect all the others. Except the difference is we actually got a lot of character development with all those colonists, whereas the ones here, we didn't really get that, and so I wasn't invested enough in these characters for that ending to have as much of an impact as it wanted to. Yeah, because instead of developing these people, they have a whole subplot of them going through this fucking puzzle. And it's really fun. I do think this story needed a bit more to it. To justify having the pulpy bits. But I really liked parts of it. Like, I liked the other Exelons, like the with all the religious horror. I think you could have maybe done a bit more clashing between the different factions of Exelons. You could have delved a bit more into that, but they didn't really do that. There's a lot of, I think there are some missed opportunities with the story, but it's still a fun little story. Terry Nation's a bit of an oddity in the Pertwee era, because his writing style's very different to everyone else, and it sticks out, I think. Especially when you consider that this comes right after a Malcolm Hulke story. Planet of the Daleks came after Frontier in Space, which is also a Malcolm Hulke story. Although I would say Planet doesn't feel as much of a shift. It does feel like a shift, but it's not as hard of a shift between these two. I still felt with Planet, the Thal characters actually got quite a bit of development compared to the colonists here. That's one of the big differences. And also, bloody Bernard Horsfall is just brilliant in everything. I love that man's voice. He's just so charismatic. But in terms of the actual plot itself, like, yeah, so we learnt about Exelon, we learnt about their origin story, which was admittedly actually quite interesting. And then there's also the whole thing about the power outage in the TARDIS, and then we find out why that happens. And there's, the whole thing about the Beryllium, and there's the city, and there's the I guess you call it a spire or something. And, that's all good. And then, obviously, but then it's also filled in with Daleks in a puzzle. And, yeah, and there's that too. And then there's also the snake thing. So, yeah, I don't really know what word to use to describe it, but I would say on like a more serious level, it could have been better, but on like a non-serious level, it's still enjoyable. In terms of like how the story is received, based on what I've heard about it, it's quite a divisive story. It's known for being eccentric. The ones who like it really like it, and the ones who dislike it think it's awful. I don't think it's like a brilliant story. I also don't think it's a bad story. I just think it's kind of good. It certainly has some like plot contrivances, but they are quite funny, and they make the story fun to watch. Like, the biggest one, obviously, is the maze thing. I'm just like, how the fuck did they not figure out that maze? Like, are they actually stupid? Oh, dear. But then again, if that didn't happen, that scene wouldn't be as fun as it is. So, obviously, this is written by Terry Nation, and it has a lot of his traits in it. Like, it's a lot of Terry Nation's dialogue, it feels more like a Hollywood film of the time rather than Doctor Who. That's what I find with a lot of his scripts. It's quite it borders on cheesy, but it's very endearing. He has a style. Let's just say that Terry Nation has a very distinct style that no one else really can replicate, I think. But that being said, tone-wise, he is very variable, because the last, like, obviously we had Planet of the Daleks, but the last time before that we saw him was fucking Daleks Master Plan, and his tone in that story is wildly different to this. Like, it's grim. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he also wasn't too pleased when Louis Marks Day of the Daleks as well. Because Day of the Daleks is an odd story. I really like it, but I also feel like it shouldn't be a Dalek story. It's a strange one. It's a very strange story. And I watched the special edition on my marathon, and it weirdly feels like a New Who story. It has a lot of similarities to New Who in the way it's written and the way it's directed, and I don't know, it was very odd. Anyway, but I do think the Pertwee Dalek stories as a whole are quite odd. Not that makes them bad, but they are strange. The direction by Michael Bryant I actually thought was pretty damn good. Yeah, so I thought that, like, I think maybe he gets a bit of shit because of just that Part 3 cliffhanger. Because it's just a still shot of the floor, and we don't even know what it is. Yeah, I'm also, like, kind of, just thinking about it, I'm kind of frustrated that I never saw the face of that Exelon that was in the chair. I was waiting for, like, the chair to turn around, but then he just disappears like a fucking Jedi. But yeah, I thought the direction was really good, especially, and I thought Part 1 was handled extremely well. It's quite difficult to direct in the dark like that, so I thought he managed it pretty well in that regard. And obviously, the music was by Kerry Blyton, who is... I think it's the thing about this story I'm going to remember the most. I want Kerry Blyton to score every story that's... like, it's Kerry Blyton's score is one of those ones where if a story isn't going well, it'll just cheer you up. Yeah, I don't know. It was certainly interesting, I'll say that much. And it was a fun score, but I was like... I certainly couldn't take it that seriously, if you know what I mean. Although, interestingly, like, when they went into the Dalek shit, it cut straight to Tristram Carey's music, and it felt like a really hard, like, shift, because obviously Tristram Carey's music is completely different to Kerry Blyton's. The music was fun, let's just say that. This story had the working titles of Dalek Story. This is going to be called Dalek Story. There was going to be one called, it could have been called The Exelons, or Doctor Who and the Exelons. There was also another one where it was Exelons with 2 X's, and then this story originally did not feature the Daleks. Here we go. Which are included because Barry Letts and Terrence Sticks wanted to cash in on their popularity. Well, that makes so much more sense. They really didn't need to be in it. Even though they do make it more fun. The story marks the first time the Daleks' weapons do not function on screen. The Daleks can modify their casings relatively quickly, replacing their energy weapons with slug-throwing rifles. I mean, the new weapons are pretty cool. It's just... But I just find that so crazy how, like, literally the Doctor could have been killed then and there. Daleks target practice with their new projectile weaponry aboard their spaceship used a miniature police box. That was hilarious. The fact that they hate the Doctor so much that they're doing target practice on a police box. Apparently, this is the last third Doctor story to feature the TARDIS console room, and it's the last story to feature the TARDIS console room until Planet of Evil. So I think it is quite ironic that those are from the 60s, and they painted them like black and white, yet the ones that are actually in black and white aren't black and white. Cliffhanger to part 3, the Doctor and Bilal walking towards a red and white geometric patterned area on the floor, only for the Doctor to say, "Stop, don't move," was not originally going to be the cliffhanger. The original cliffhanger was going to be at the scene where the Doctor is trying to deduce the answer to the logic test concerning the symbols when the two Daleks appeared. Specifically, the cliffhanger would have hinged on the zoom towards the Daleks' gun. This was changed, however, for timing reasons. Well, I'm kind of happy that they changed it, because now it's really funny. Oh, I was right! I was fucking right. So, the floor pattern trap resembles the chessboard trap used in the Tomb of Rassilon in the Five Doctors. I knew it. It's the same thing. Oh my god, so that prop that they used for the Dalek guns were reused for the Hoth Troopers in Empire Strikes Back. So George Lucas really did steal from this story. The Crotons, I think George Lucas stole from as well, because there's that wall into the city, and it has like this weird snake thing coming out of it, and it's almost completely identical to Jabba's palace when the droids go to the wall, and there's that little thing that comes out. It's almost identical. And funnily enough, I was saying to Maddox when we were watching it, I was like, so does that mean that, like, the Doctor is C-3PO because he's, like, the gay butler droid, and Zoe is R2 because she's the mathematician? And, like, the way Doctor acts in that story is actually quite similar to C-3PO in Return of the Jedi. It's just like, oh, it's like a mild inconvenience, let's go. Yeah, George Lucas stole a lot. He also stole the Tusken Raiders from Colony in Space. Exelon was originally a jungle planet. Well, I think if they had made it a jungle planet, I think that would just be too similar to Planet of the Daleks. Apparently the Exelons were conceived to be bat-like. Oh, apparently they had to rearrange the shooting when John Pertwee's arrival was delayed by a severe attack of chronic back pain. And even more than that, Elizabeth Sladen injured her ankle while running on the muddy ground. Fortunately, she had largely completed her location material. Alright, so give a conclusion and rating out of 10 for Death to the Daleks.
Death to the Daleks is a story that I always really enjoy and always have a really good time with. I always love just how ridiculous it is. I really like, oddly enough, John Pertwee's almost begrudging performance throughout it. You really feel that like he almost doesn't want to be there. It's a really good time, I think, to watch it. Looks great, feels great, the direction is phenomenal. Supporting characters, while kind of forgettable, do give some fun performances, and I absolutely love the Daleks in this. They are fantastic. I love the Exelons, I love Bilal in particular. Bilal is a king, and yeah, it's probably not deserving of the ridiculously high rating I give it, or at least ridiculously high, like, comparatively to what I probably should be giving it, but I would give it an 8 personally, and yeah, I think it's just a really good time.
Okay. Death to the Daleks was interesting. It was fun. Certainly some errors, but a lot of those errors do make it enjoyable to watch, which is something. I do think that after part 1, the character drama gets a little bit flaccid. Like, the Doctor and Sarah don't really get as much to do as I would have liked, but it's still fun. I love the silly puzzles and this big snake thing and the Dalek and all that. And I think the feeling I'm getting from it is very similar to the one that I got after the Crotons. So I think I'm probably going to give it the same score. I'm going to give this story a 7 out of 10. That means that that makes it currently until I watch Monster of Peladon for the first time and rewatch Planet of the Spiders and reevaluate those and see where they land. I think that currently makes it my least favorite Pertwee story. I mean, the last time I watched Planet of the Spiders, I would have given it a 7, but I think I'll see how I feel about it when I watch it the next time. It might go up. But in this marathon, not including the next 2 stories, the lowest it's gotten is 7.5, which was the Sea Devils. With that said, we now move on to the final section of this video, which is defending a New Who story against Hellbent. Because that's kind of, at the genesis of this series, the idea was we want to watch all of Classic Who and see if there's anything that gets below Hellbent. So far, that hasn't happened. But part of it is also, I sort of set a challenge to where people can comment and suggest a story for us to defend against Hellbent. Some of them have been harder than others. But this time we're going to be doing a story which I know you have very interesting thoughts on, because I've seen a video on your channel where you have briefly discussed it. And that is the Series 6 finale, The Wedding of Riversong. Funnily enough, this was requested by the same person that also requested Death to the Daleks be on this list. It was Asmat Mahmood, and he's written a paragraph about Wedding of Riversong. So he has said, I'm going to put forth The Wedding of Riversong as a potentially worse episode than Hellbent. Of course, I can't discuss that episode without discussing Series 6 as well. So this comment will also address the overall problem I have with Series 6 a little bit. Firstly, I'll start off with why I think Series 6 as a whole doesn't work. The Doctor using a Tesselector is a cheap get-out-of-jail-free card, which doesn't even make sense because the Doctor started to regenerate in The Impossible Astronaut. The Tesselector is a machine operated by humans. It shouldn't be able to replicate a regeneration. It would have made slightly more sense if it was a fresh flesh duplicate of the Doctor, but that thread was completely dropped and never mentioned again after Grimman Goes to War. Even then, the 11th Doctor was the last in the cycle, so it wouldn't have been still would have been inconsistent because no regenerations left. To be fair, that was retroactive. We didn't know about the War Doctor at that point. Neither did Stephen Moffat, I think. Also, the whole premise of the series is kind of ridiculous. They teased us with the possibility of the Doctor dying, but we all knew it was a bluff. I think also, just to sidetrack a bit, I also think this has been damaged like retroactively. Like when people watch the show now that Series 6 is not current, I think they know that it's not going to lead into anything because they know what happens after. They know that there are other Doctors, so it's a bit like, okay, what the hell? As a result, the level of dramatic tension and suspense wasn't as much they properly hoped. We were simply waiting to see the answers for all our many, many questions and find out the Doctor got out of it in the end. Of course, we knew he would. It would have helped if the answers were at all satisfactory. The series collapsed under its own weight. It was simply too grand and epic for its own good. He says, I hate that River was willing to put all of reality in danger and wasn't willing to let the Doctor die for the sake of the universe just because she loves him too much. She comes across as a desperate, deranged, and clingy girlfriend. Why was it necessary for them to get married? It felt so over the top and melodramatic for absolutely no reason. I guess the Doctor did it to appease Riversong, which is really weird. We're supposed to be touched and feel emotional because of all of that when it's a token gesture by the Doctor. To make matters worse, all of the emotional build-up and drama throughout the episode and the whole series felt cheap, unnecessarily, and manipulative when the Tesselector twist was revealed. Throughout the series, we were told that it was definitely the Doctor who was shot on the beach, not a robot, not a duplicate, and then out of nowhere, at the 11th hour, see what I did there, it revealed that it was a robot all along. That's not a good twist after a whole series worth of build-up. Anticlimactic is what it was. Even if we are to believe the Doctor rewrote time, how is that possible? I thought it was a fixed point. It can't be rewritten, not that to that extent. I mean, surely time would sense that it's not really the Doctor getting shot, but just a robot. Also, it was never even explained how the Silents were able to control and blow up the TARDIS in the previous series' finale, and why they were willing to put all of reality in danger just to stop the Doctor from getting to Transalore. They were trying to save reality by destroying all of reality. It makes sense. The emotional impact of Amy and Rory losing their daughter is completely glossed over. Mel being revealed to be River growing up alongside Amy and Rory all along is a really ridiculous attempt in softening the blow of them losing Melody. Amy and Rory's lives have been completely messed up. Their daughter turns out to be this older woman they have been running around with for a while, and their trouble-making childhood friend at the same time. The trouble is these twists seem to just happen for the sake of it. There's never any significant weight or gravity put into the situations because their emotional turmoil that must have surely taken place for Amy and Rory is never explored. As a result of that, the emotional impact and consequences of the story are diluted because people involved don't really feel like real people. They just feel like plot devices needed to connect all the dots. They're pawns on Moffat's chessboard that need to be moved around in order to advance the bigger story, and there's an emotional distance and coldness to this series, and that's a big problem. Well, the funny thing is, I agree with pretty much everything he said, but I still think it's better than Hellbent.
I don't think any remotely good scene in Hellbent even comes close to the best scene in Wedding, in my opinion, which is the Doctor getting the phone call about the Brigadier's death. Phenomenally acted, phenomenally written. I love the performances and just the way the scene is played. I think it's a fantastic tribute to Nick Courtney. Oddly enough, written by Stephen Moffat, who would go on to disrespect Nick Courtney miserably. But no, I think, that scene alone makes up for it. I don't think Wedding is a great episode by any means. I think it's I don't hate it. I definitely don't love it. But I don't hate it either. It's just one of the more forgettable episodes, actually, oddly enough for me. It doesn't quite do anything for me, but at the same time, there are moments that I really enjoy, whereas Hellbent I actively despise. That alone, I think, is, should be enough to bring Wedding above it. Let alone the fact that, I think Wedding no matter like how ham-fisted the ending might be, I think at least it actually is a conclusion to Series 6, whereas like concluding the hybrid arc in Series 9 doesn't feel actually concluded. It doesn't feel like there's actually like a satisfying ending to that story in Hellbent. So I think Wedding at least does a decent job like wrapping up Series 6's arc, even though I don't like how or I don't like the fact that like the Doctor and River basically get married for absolutely no reason. But again, it isn't an actual ending to the series, at least. It doesn't feel just like a loose end the entire runtime. So those points alone, I think, make Wedding infinitely better than Hellbent. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the difference between them for me is that with Wedding of Riversong, like it is a shit ending, but it's more like it's almost just like they pulled the rug and went, haha, fuck you. Like it was almost like a prank ending. And that is disappointing, like really disappointing, but it's nowhere near as bad for me as Hellbent, which is it's a lot more sinister, if that makes sense. It's a lot more sinister to the audience that aren't into it, if that makes sense. In that, like, Wedding of Riversong is almost like it isn't as, like, it's intellectually insulting, yes, but it's not as offensive as Hellbent to me. Because Hellbent takes things that are pre-established in the show and kind of pulls the finger at them. Like, the way it handles Gallifrey, the way it presents the Doctor and Clara's relationship as the be-all and end-all of his entire life. And yet it's got so many problems that don't justify that. And then obviously you have things like how we're meant to believe that he is so dedicated to her that after being on the confession dial, it causes him to become this ulterior being who will kill people in cold blood to save her, which just feels very jarring. It doesn't feel like it's earned. It doesn't feel like I don't really see the justification for this shift in character. It's very much glossed over. It's very much glossed over in the Thebes, if you get what I'm saying, because you get the scene in the TARDIS when he's just like I went too far. I became the hybrid. Yeah, it's actually a much bigger shock because the previous two episodes had actually given us some really good material to work with, and then it just shits all over it. Whereas with Series 6, it was already ruined before the finale. It was just like Wedding of Riversong was just the final nail in the coffin, I think. I mean, looking back on it, like it was kind of fucked from the start when the Doctor gets shot in Impossible Astronaut, because it's just like, well, there is just no sensible way to answer this. So like, what the hell's gonna happen? Yeah, I think the problems with Series 6 are widespread across the episodes, whereas a lot of Series 9, obviously I do have problems with a lot of the episodes, but in terms of the hybrid arc itself, everything is contained to that one final episode, and all the shit boils over in that 1 hour. And I think that contained toppling on top of the fact that the consequences of this arc happening in this like setting with these characters is a lot more devastating to the show than Wedding of Riversong. Like Wedding of Riversong, like it just makes Series 6 like a dud to watch, whereas with Series 9's finale, it impacts more than just Series 9. It impacts the Doctor and Clara's characters as a whole. It impacts parts of the show that were pre-established. It impacts like so many different things that are widespread, whereas I feel like The Wedding of Riversong is something that's very contained to Series 6, aside from, you could say it bleeds over into like 5 and 7 with the Silence arc, but as a whole, that resolution is only disappointing within the context of its own run. And I suppose in a way, like, because when I rewatch Wedding of Riversong knowing what's going to happen, like the shit parts are still shit, but the other bits that are like just ridiculously silly, I can kind of just have I can kind of laugh at them because they're kind of funny bad, if that makes sense. Whereas with Hellbent, there is no levity. It's just tonally dead for the whole thing. It takes itself completely seriously, as if it's this be-all and end-all of Doctor Who. It is this Shakespearean tragic drama. And also like all of the like points where it tries to be funny just fall so flat. Like, you got the bit where he's pointing the gun and he's like, "Don't take a selfie," and it just feels so out of place. It's a lot more painful for me to sit through. It's a lot more insulting. Whereas Winning of Riversong, like, I don't enjoy it, but the parts that are silly, I'm just sort of like, yeah, okay, so I can get why some people would like this. Like, you got the bit at the start with that with the Paradigm Dalek, and it's just really like it's just really silly. But it's not as damaging to the story, I think. It just makes it like sort of it's just another quirky Matt Smith episode, you know? I think that's enough justified reasons. Right, so anything you want to say before we wrap up the video?
Thank you, Connor, of course, for having me on. It has been fantastic. I really wish we were able to have a smoother time in the post-production of this video, but it was a great time nonetheless, and I really hope I have any technical issues that I've experienced throughout this fixed by the next time we do this. Again, ton of fun, and I hope you enjoyed whatever these stupid recordings were. Thank you once again.
So, that was Death to the Daleks, and the next time on this series, I'm going to be doing the Monster of Peladon with Brian Corrigan. And it's the only Pertwee story I haven't seen yet. So, yeah, it'll be satisfying to close that off. So, yeah, we'll see you all then. Bye.